Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. In the wake of a peaceful summer morning, the skies above Earth tore open. It wasn't a storm or even a cosmic event that astronomers could easily explain. Time itself, the steady heartbeat of the universe, faltered. The world fell into chaos, a surreal distortion, as time began to unravel like a thread pulled from an ancient tapestry. Clocks stopped ticking, cities blurred in and out of existence, and for some, moments passed like centuries. Amy stood at the window of her laboratory, hands trembling slightly as she observed the madness outside. For most people, this temporal breakdown seemed like a nightmare, time speeding up and slowing down in erratic bursts, but to her, it was the culmination of something deeper. She had spent her life studying the relationship between quantum physics and time, and she had anticipated, in theory, that something like this might happen. Not exactly this, of course. This was far more violent, far more chaotic than anything she could have predicted. Still, there was a deep sense of responsibility weighing on her now. She knew she was humanity's best chance at survival. The government had called her weeks ago when the first anomalies were detected. They asked for answers, solutions, anything. But time was a stubborn force, one that resisted manipulation. Until now. Dr. Amy Vance, came a voice behind her, cutting through the fog of her thoughts. It was Daniel, her closest colleague and the lead engineer on her team. His face was pale, his voice shaking slightly. The models are showing an accelerated breakdown. We might only have a few hours before, Amy turned to him, her sharp blue eyes steady despite the chaos. Before what, Daniel? Before time collapses entirely? Before we cease to exist? You think I don't know that? He flinched at her intensity but nodded. We need to finish the device now. She exhaled, running a hand through her hair, already messy from sleepless nights spent in the lab. The device. Her mind raced as she thought about it, a machine that could, in theory, reverse time by manipulating quantum fields. It was the culmination of decades of research, but it had never been tested on such a scale. We're not just talking about stopping this event, Daniel. We're talking about reversing time itself, she said quietly, pacing across the room. The risks, I know the risks, he interrupted, his voice growing firmer. But do we really have any other choice? Amy stopped. She glanced around the lab, at the collection of brilliant minds working tirelessly to save the world. The walls were filled with complex equations, diagrams, and projections that only someone like her could fully understand. But no amount of brilliance could erase the gnawing uncertainty in her heart. Could they really pull this off? Could they reverse time without destroying the fabric of reality itself? We have to try, she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Time was a paradox, an enigma that had puzzled physicists and philosophers for centuries. Amy had spent her entire career attempting to decode its mysteries, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge further than anyone had thought possible. But now, as she stood in front of the device, a sleek, intricate machine humming with latent energy, she realized that this was more than just a scientific endeavor. This was survival. All systems are online, Daniel reported, his fingers flying across the keyboard as the machine's core lit up with a soft, pulsating glow. Amy nodded, her pulse quickening. She glanced at the readouts, checking the quantum stability of the device. The machine was designed to interact with the quantum field that governed time, using highly focused energy to alter the flow of time on a global scale. Theoretically, it could rewind the events that had caused the anomaly, restoring the natural flow of time, but theoretical was the operative word. If this works. She began, her voice trailing off as she adjusted a setting on the console. We won't just stop the disaster. We might have access to something beyond. Something no one has ever seen before. Daniel frowned. You mean the higher dimensions? Yes, Amy replied, her gaze distant. We're manipulating time at a quantum level. If we're able to reverse it, there's a strong possibility we could open a door to another dimension, one where time operates differently, one where we could go beyond our current understanding of reality. Daniel's face was pale, but he nodded. You're sure we're ready? No, she said honestly. But we don't have a choice. The machine roared to life, its hum growing louder as the quantum fields began to align. Amy could feel the air around her vibrate, a low thrum that resonated deep within her chest. She glanced at Daniel, who was monitoring the systems, his eyes wide with anticipation. All readings are stable, he said, his voice barely audible over the noise. We're ready to begin. Amy's hand hovered over the activation switch, her mind racing with the possibilities. If they succeeded, humanity would be saved. But if they failed, she pressed the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. The machine's hum grew louder, the lights flickering as energy pulsed through the room. And then, with a sudden jolt, the world seemed to shift. The air around them rippled, and Amy felt a strange sensation, like gravity had reversed, pulling her upwards, outwards, into something vast and incomprehensible. She gasped, clutching the edge of the console as the room around her blurred and faded. Time itself seemed to stretch, bending and twisting like a piece of fabric caught in the wind. She saw flashes of her own life, moments from the past, from the future, all overlapping in a dizzying cascade, and then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. Amy found herself standing in an empty space, a void, endless and infinite. There was no up, no down, no sense of direction. It was as if she had stepped outside of time itself. Amy, came a voice, soft and distant. She turned, expecting to see Daniel or one of her team members, but there was no one. Only the voice. Who's there? She called out, her voice echoing in the emptiness. You've done it, the voice said, growing clearer. You've opened the door. Amy's heart pounded in her chest as she realized what had happened. The device had worked. It had not only reversed the disaster but had opened a portal to a higher dimension, a place where time and space were mere constructs, where reality itself could be bent and shaped. She felt a rush of exhilaration, followed quickly by fear. This was beyond anything she had ever imagined. Beyond anything anyone had ever imagined. And yet, here she was, standing on the precipice of something extraordinary. What is this place? She asked, her voice trembling. It is the space between dimensions, the voice replied. A realm where time flows differently, where the boundaries of reality are thin. You have the power to explore beyond the limits of your world, to see things that no human has ever seen. Amy felt a surge of excitement. This was what she had always dreamed of, pushing the boundaries of science, of reality itself. But there was a part of her that hesitated. She had opened a door, yes, but what lay beyond? What were the risks? What happens if I step through? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. There are no guarantees, the voice said, growing softer. But if you do, you will see the true nature of the universe. You will understand what lies beyond time and space. Amy stood there, her mind racing with possibilities. She could feel the pull of the unknown, the lure of discovery. But she also knew that once she stepped through that door, there was no turning back. The world she knew, the life she had lived, would be forever changed. Taking a deep breath, she made her decision. The return to Earth was jarring. One moment, Amy had been floating in the void, on the edge of something vast and unknowable, and the next, she was back in the lab, surrounded by the familiar hum of machinery. The device was still glowing softly, its core pulsating with energy. "Dr. Vance." Daniel's voice cut through the haze. "Are you all right?" Amy blinked, trying to shake off the disorientation. I'm fine," she said, though her voice sounded distant, even to her own ears. "What happened?" he asked, his eyes wide with concern. "I saw something," she said slowly, her mind struggling to find the words. "I was outside of time. In another dimension. It's hard to explain, but I think we've unlocked something far more powerful than we ever imagined." Daniel stared at her, his expression a mix of awe and fear. "What does that mean for us? For humanity?" Amy shook her head. "I don't know yet. But what I do know is that we've opened a door. A door to something greater. And it's up to us to decide how far we want to go." The world was saved. The temporal disaster had been averted, and time had returned to its natural flow. But Amy knew that the real journey was just beginning. The portal to the higher dimension was still there, waiting to be explored. As news of the discovery spread, the world reacted with a mixture of excitement and fear. Some saw it as a chance for humanity to expand its understanding of the universe, to explore new realms of existence. Others worried about the dangers, about what might happen if they ventured too far into the unknown. Amy stood at the center of it all, hailed as the savior of humanity, the woman who had unlocked the secrets of time itself. But she didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a traveler standing at the edge of a vast, uncharted ocean, unsure of what lay beyond the horizon. "We've only just begun," she whispered to herself, staring at the glowing portal in the lab. "And the future, it's beyond anything we can imagine." Amy stood at the precipice of the unknown, the portal shimmering faintly before her. The glow of the machine's core still lingered in the air, casting an ethereal light across the lab, yet it seemed to pale in comparison to the promise of what lay beyond. She felt a pull in her chest, a sensation both familiar and alien, as if the very fabric of the universe was beckoning her forward. Her mind raced with possibilities, but deep down, she knew there was no turning back. Daniel approached cautiously, his footsteps soft against the metal floor. "Amy, are you sure about this?" His voice wavered slightly, betraying the tension he had been trying to hide. "We have no idea what could happen if you go through again. Last time, you said it was like nothing you could explain. What if it's too dangerous?" She turned to him, her expression calm but determined. "Dangerous? Absolutely. But what we've discovered here, Daniel, it's beyond anything we've ever dreamed of. This isn't just about understanding time anymore. It's about unlocking the true nature of the universe. We can't stop now." Daniel nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling between them. He knew she was right. The whole world had changed since the day Amy had activated the device. The anomalies had ceased, and time had stabilized, but there was still something missing, an unfinished thread that tugged at the edges of his consciousness. The higher dimension, the place where Amy had glimpsed the raw truth of existence, that was where the answers lay. "You don't have to do this alone, you know," he said quietly, stepping closer. "We could work together, prepare a team. It doesn't have to fall on just you." Amy offered a small smile, appreciating the gesture. "I know. But this, it feels like something I have to face myself. I've spent my entire life trying to understand time, trying to grasp its nature. Now that we've opened this door, I need to be the one to step through it. Daniel hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder. Just, promise me you'll come back. She met his gaze, her blue eyes steady. I promise. With that, she turned to face the portal once more. The shimmering light seemed to pulse in response to her presence, as if recognizing her, welcoming her. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, the world around her dissolving into a cascade of colors and light. The sensation of stepping into the higher dimension was unlike anything Amy had ever experienced. It wasn't like walking through a door or even traveling through space. It was more like becoming untethered from reality itself. The ground disappeared beneath her feet, replaced by a vast expanse of swirling energy. Time no longer moved in the way it had on Earth. Here, it was fluid, malleable, bending and stretching like the surface of a liquid. Amy floated through the space, her body weightless, her senses overwhelmed by the sheer scale of what she was experiencing. Every moment felt infinite, yet fleeting. She could see the echoes of her own past, brief flashes of her childhood, her years in academia, the long hours spent in the lab, and at the same time, she glimpsed the possibilities of the future. Infinite branching paths stretched out before her, each one leading to a different version of herself, a different reality. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. As she drifted deeper into the dimension, she began to notice shapes forming in the distance. At first, they were little more than vague outlines, but as she drew closer, they took on more defined forms. Structures, like towering spires of light, rose from the depths of the dimension, their surfaces shimmering with an otherworldly glow. They didn't seem to be made of any material she recognized, more like they were constructed from pure energy, constantly shifting and reforming. And there, at the center of it all, was a figure. Amy's heart raced as she approached. The figure stood tall, bathed in the radiant glow of the dimension's energy. It was humanoid in shape, but there was something undeniably alien about it. Its features were smooth, almost ethereal, and its eyes, if they could be called eyes, shimmered with a deep, unsettling wisdom. "Welcome," the figure said, though its voice wasn't something Amy heard with her ears. It resonated inside her mind, a gentle, calming presence that seemed to bypass her senses entirely. "You have come far." Amy struggled to find her voice. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head slightly, as if considering the question. "I am a guardian of sorts. My purpose is to maintain the balance of this realm, to ensure that the fabric of time and space remains intact." "Balance?" Amy repeated, her mind racing. "But we, humans, aren't supposed to be here, are we? We weren't meant to discover this dimension." The figure's gaze never wavered. "You are correct. But now that the door has been opened, your presence here cannot be undone. You have glimpsed the truth of the universe, and with that knowledge comes great responsibility." Amy swallowed hard. She had known, on some level, that what she was doing was dangerous, that meddling with time could have far-reaching consequences. But hearing it spoken so plainly, by a being so clearly beyond human understanding, made it all the more real. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. The figure raised a hand, and the space around them shifted. Amy saw images flicker to life, scenes of Earth, of her lab, of the device she had created. "Your world is still fragile, still vulnerable to the forces that govern this dimension. If you are not careful, your actions could unravel everything. But there is also great potential. You have the power to guide your people into a new era of understanding, to bridge the gap between your reality and this one. Amy felt a mixture of hope and fear welling up inside her. But how? How can we bridge that gap without causing more harm? The figure's eyes seemed to glow brighter. The answer lies within you, Amy Vance. You have already begun to unlock the secrets of time, but there is more to discover, more that even I cannot teach you. It will be up to you to decide how far you are willing to go, how much you are willing to risk. Amy's mind spun with possibilities. She had always pushed the boundaries of what was possible, but this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. The weight of the responsibility settled on her shoulders like a heavy cloak, and yet, she knew she couldn't turn back now. I understand, she said softly, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that churned within her. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my world. The figure nodded, a faint smile playing at the edges of its lips. Good. Then your journey is just beginning. Amy returned to the lab with a jolt, her body shuddering as she re-entered the familiar space. The portal behind her flickered and faded, its glow dimming until it was nothing more than a faint shimmer in the air. Daniel rushed to her side, his face pale with concern. Amy, what happened? You were gone for I don't even know how long. Are you all right? She nodded, though her mind was still reeling from the encounter. I'm fine. I spoke to someone. Or something. I'm not sure what it was, but it called itself a guardian. It told me that we've opened a door, and that we have the power to change everything, for better or worse. Daniel's eyes widened. A guardian? What does that mean? What are we supposed to do now? Amy took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. We need to be careful. We've barely scratched the surface of what this dimension holds. But I think this is our chance to push humanity forward. To explore new realms of knowledge, to understand time and space in ways we never thought possible. Daniel hesitated, then nodded slowly. I trust you, Amy. Whatever we need to do, I'm with you. She smiled, grateful for his support. Thank you, Daniel. We're going to need all the help we can get. As the two of them stood together in the lab, the weight of the future pressing down on them, Amy couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. The challenges ahead would be immense, but they had the opportunity to change everything, to go beyond the limits of their understanding and unlock the true potential of the universe, and for Amy, that was all she had ever wanted.